press record. We're all set. So yeah, thanks for agreeing to do this and being interested. Really, it's nice. I don't often get to sit face to face and speak to somebody about what we do in triathlon, multisport in general. The only ones I've ever done are my club mates who've qualified for GB. So it's quite refreshing actually to actually physically be in the same room, because like I said to you earlier, it's normally over Zoom. So you won't have heard, because we've only just met this morning, you won't have heard any of the podcasts.
No.
So basically the format is we'll run through that and this will all be edited out. I'll ask you about growing up as a kid, what you did sporting wise, and then how you got into multisport, and then how you heard about Agegroup, and then how you became the Welsh Triathlon Chairman. And we can discuss, and then it can go any tangent as conversations do. And if there's anything you want to talk about or ask or whatever, let people know, because that's primarily what this is. It's an advertising thing, like you alluded to this morning, didn't you? You said, "Oh, do you not advertise or whatever?" And it's just never gelled. I don't know. Like it's difficult to try and get it out.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, some people don't listen to podcasts. They don't know what they are, and the people who do, it's trying to put it on platforms that they can actually find it and it's easy access.
Good idea.
But we do our best, and we get quite a lot of listens. So yeah, that's how it goes. So that's the format, and yeah, nice and relaxed, just having a chat. Any questions for me before we get going?
What's the capital of Peru?
I should know this because my friends are over there now, touring Peru. They're going to go to Machu Picchu and all that. I don't know.
It's a line from the film Airplane.
Yeah. Airplane, what a great film. It was a fantastic film. The Nun. Yeah.
Lima, with the manor.
I think I've been as well.
All right. If anyone asks me if I've got a question.
Have you got a question? Yeah. Well, have you got any questions?
Yeah, what's the capital of Peru?
Oh, yeah, well, we can go around in circles.
Okay, yeah.
So in a minute I'll just ask you to introduce yourself, and so who you are, where you're from, what you do, and we'll take it from there. All right.
Stuff, yeah.
Right. So once again, thank you for agreeing to come on the podcast, and if you'd like to introduce yourself, please crack on.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Martin Kitchener. I live in Cardiff. I'm originally from Birmingham, and I'm meeting you here today because it's the first time I've ever represented Great Britain in the Agegroup Championships. This is the Europeans, and we're in Pamplona in Spain.
We are. And what are your thoughts so far?
I'm a bit nervous and
Good.
a bit excited, and I was talking to my son last night, and I, for the first time, actually felt a bit proud. Not proud as in kind of like a boasty proud, but up till now I hadn't really thought about it, and the thought of actually representing Great Britain at something, I'm actually quite excited about and proud about, but maybe for the first time today, the day before I do it.
Yeah, well, no, but it's a big thing, isn't it? And you should be proud of yourself. You know, we said earlier, didn't we? Everybody puts a lot of work in, and it doesn't matter what level you are, you're still training towards that goal, and you've achieved it. So we people say, "Oh, I'm really nervous." Just go and enjoy the race. We just met a guy downstairs who's just come in this afternoon, and it's his first time. And he's on his own, and just go and enjoy it. That's the key, I think.
As we were talking about this morning, triathlon is either unique or quite distinctive in actually being a sport that's structured to provide people with the opportunity of representing at an age group level. And that's something you probably can't do if you're playing football or rugby or other sports. So, you know, it's not a reason necessarily to take up triathlon, but if you are involved in triathlon, it's something that's certainly worth thinking about, and it's an opportunity that this sport does give you that other sports doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think anybody starts it to think, oh, I want to go and try and qualify for, because it usually comes later, doesn't it? People then realise and find out that it's a thing. Because like you alluded to this morning, it's not an easy find, is it?
It's not an easy find. I think I did my first triathlon in 2011, and I learnt about Agegroup last year. So that's whatever it's 14 or 15 years in that I actually became aware of it. So no, it wasn't the reason for me doing it.
No, it's incredible though. It's you know, and you being at the level which we will touch on in a while that you are, and it's took all that length of time. That's
kind of embarrassing.
Well, it just proves the point though. I think, really. So anyway, going back to your story, what did you do growing up as a kid, sporting wise?
Very kind of normal kind of background. I went to a comprehensive school. We played football, we played cricket in the summer. I played for the school. Even though I'm from Birmingham, quite unusually, I was in the Sea Scouts. And Birmingham's got more miles of canal than Venice, and I learnt to canoe on canals. So I spent quite a bit of my early time canoeing, which is unusual. But the rest of it was fairly standard, just playing kind of football in the winter and then cricket in the summer.
Yeah.
No kind of athletics really, and I'd never heard of triathlon. I didn't even know it existed.
No, I think back then, I mean, obviously we're in the same age group, so we were around the same time. It was never a thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think the only thing the time I heard of it was when our local leisure centre about 12 or 13 years ago were putting a starter. Actually, that's a lie. It was my brother's brother-in-law. He did triathlons and duathlons, and asked us would I go and do a duathlon. That's the first time I'd heard of it, years and years and years ago, but not when we were kids.
The first time I ever heard of triathlon, I was in college in Aberystwyth, and there was a group of boys who were known as the Triathlete Boys, and they were all kind of like fit and very strong athletes, and they were kind of a little self-contained gang, very different from the rest of me. So it was on my radar from then, but it was something that other people did and very kind of particular type of people, very intense, very keen athletes. Not.
Well, I guess you could say it was quite an extreme sport, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Many ways, but the more you find out about it, it doesn't have to be that. And I think if you speak to a lot of people, like my friends who don't know anything about triathlon, they kind of know about Ironman, and they think that triathlon is Ironman. But even as we were just talking about, even I'm discovering all the different variations that you can do of swimming, biking and running. And so you can go completely in and go and do an Ironman, but you can do shorter distances, and you can do kind of any combination of those three under that umbrella of triathlon. So I think maybe the sport could do a better job of actually explaining to people that it's not just triathlon, even though that's what you see or you might have heard about on the telly.
I think it was a bit disappointing for me when we're going off on a tangent already. We haven't even we've got to your school. It's what you did at school, but it was disappointing to me when World Triathlon rebranded. They stuck with the name triathlon, because I think, just my personal thoughts, is that it should have been World Multisport rather than World Triathlon, and stigmatise people and not open it all up. And then they could have branches off to say, well, actually, it's not just triathlon. We do this, this, and this, and this, because they do duathlons at elite level. In fact, they do them all at elite level now. So I think it was an opportunity missed. But what do I know?
I think I'd agree with you there, and that's certainly at the world level. I think British Triathlon is doing a good job of kind of promoting the idea of swim, bike, run, and that's a different way of packaging it. And I think that might be helpful. But even for someone who's been doing it for a while, to learn, these things now involving mountain bikes and swimming off the coast and running a bit. I don't even know what that's called, but that seems to be growing.
There's it's a swim and a run, but there is an actual name. I think it come originally from Scandinavia. I don't know whether it was Norwegian, but they were island hopping, swimming and running on the islands, and then swimming to the next island, because it was quite a big thing. So anyway, you did that at school. So how did that progress going into college, university? What did you get up to?
Carry on much the same kind of thing. after college I started playing squash, when squash was trendy, just before the Romans left Britain. And then I actually went and lived in America for 8 years with work in 1999.
Cool.
And I started playing golf in America from scratch. And that was kind of all consuming. And so I played golf for about 8 years, and then I had 2 sons, and I didn't have as much time apparently to play golf. And the way my wife tells the story is that I replaced the time I spent playing golf with running. And I did a marathon in San Francisco.
So how did you get into running from golf then?
My wife said it was running away from
just family.
Yeah, basically.
Giving you some space.
You're getting out of the house.
Family, you need an out, don't you?
Avoiding changing nappies is what she'd say.
Right.
There's probably an element of truth in that, but it was, but it was just trying to keep doing something. And she reckons that I probably ended up spending more time training for a marathon than I would have done playing golf.
And that was the San Francisco Marathon.
Yeah, that's right.
And what was that like? Hilly?
Yeah, it was hilly. yeah, exactly. Well, there's at least 2 big ones. Yeah, but no, that was kind of the beginning, if you like, of the slide into
So was that where you were living?
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
that's one of our places that we want to go. It's on our bucket list.
Oh, it's a great part of the world. It's lovely.
Yeah.
It's a good place if you like doing things outdoors, obviously, because you've got the climate. It's so it's no, that was good. So we came back from America in about I think it was 2008.
Right.
And then I was in a pub with a group of mates, and one of them is from Cletley, and he'd noticed that in his hometown there was going to be a thing called a triathlon.
Okay.
It wasn't starting then, it'd been going on for a while, and he said he quite fancied giving it a go, and we had a few drinks and it became a great idea.
And what distance was that?
I think that was a sprint.
Sprint distance?
Yeah, and so that was a way out, I think we got I don't know where it was, 3 or 4 months to kind of train for that, and a group of us did it, and like a lot of people starting out, we did it on the bikes that we had, which are like hybrid bikes, and I think we borrowed some wetsuits, that kind of stuff. It was that kind of stuff, and then you arrive and you see people with all the kits and all of that, and you feel a bit out of place, but we got around, and for some people that was enough, the one. Some of us carried on, and that was it. That was the start then.
And did you stick together as a group then, the ones that started? And another question, were you living in Wales at that point?
Yeah, I was living in Cardiff.
Did you move back to Wales from America?
Yeah, to Cardiff.
Why was that then? What was the...
My wife's Welsh. And Cardiff is, California's got a lot of things, but it doesn't have Welsh medium schools. And my wife speaks Welsh, and she was keen that the boys would grow up speaking Welsh. So to go to Welsh schools, there weren't many in San Francisco.
No, wouldn't they?
So that's why we're back in Cardiff, if you like.
Yeah.
So I was at. So that's why we were there. So 2011 was the first. I think it was the first triathlon that we did, and then of that group, they've all stopped doing them now.
Right.
For one reason or another.
Last man standing.
So I'm the last man standing, if you like. Yeah. But that was the start of it.
Yeah.
And then from 2011 till I guess 2018, I did sprint triathlons, and then I did a couple of standard distance. Then I did a half Ironman at Fishguard, and that was very tough. And I think I actually finished. I think I was the last male to finish, or the last but one.
Yeah.
And I lost my wetsuit. By that time I'd bought a wetsuit. I remember getting back into transition, and there was nothing at all in transition. There was my bike, but not my wetsuit.
Right. It had gone.
It had gone, yeah. But so had everyone else. The ice cream vans are gone. It was dark. The tumbleweed was blowing down through transition, and that was my kind of memory of the boot. So I remember a great feeling of kind of like achievement doing the half Ironman, and a bit of sense of disappointment that my wetsuit had gone. But apart from that, it was a great thing. And then you're on the slippery slope downwards, and I thought, on a half Ironman, can I do an Ironman?
And
I was lucky with work in that I got the chance to go and spend a year working in Oxford, and I trained with the University Triathlon Club.
Cool.
I'd never been a member of a triathlon club. I'm still not a member of a triathlon club, but I trained with these folks, and that gave me the confidence, I guess, and the opportunity to train. So I signed up to do the Bolton.
Yeah. An easy one then.
The Bolton Ironman. Yeah. Don't ask me why that one or
Yeah.
why it was. And I trained, and it was, you know, I guess a lot of sports are the same in that they give you lots of opportunities of doing different things. But while I was spending the time at Oxford, I got a proud boast that I represented Oxford in the varsity. Now, when you're sitting around in a pub, especially in South Wales, and say, I represented Oxford in the varsity, people assume it was rugby and you played at Twickenham or whatever. It wasn't. It was at Eton Dorney, obviously competing against Cambridge University, but you're part of the team, and only the ones who finish in the top 5 points count, and then the rest are just but you can say,
yeah, of course,
you know, I don't think you can call yourself a blue, but it's quite a good, it's quite a nice thing to
conversation
talk about in the pub.
Yeah.
Of course, when I was in the varsity.
When I was at Oxford.
When I was at Oxford,
yeah.
And people have to scrape through a couple of questions to actually get to the truth that you were, right at the back.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter where you come.
It really doesn't matter. Exactly.
Your achievement, isn't it?
And that's, and beyond like the story, it is actually quite a thing, and that's an opportunity that this sport kind of does give. All these funny things that you never think about, little odd things. And if you play football, or rugby, you play on the same kind of parks, pitches or whatever. Like cup games, you might play different quite grateful to triathlon as an idea of helping get through what was quite a tricky time for a lot of people, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So 2002, I went to 10B and I did 10B and I got through it, and that was a great experience. And the sense at the end was just, for me, it was just relief.
Even more so because the first time you didn't manage it, and now you have. It's like box tick.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Achieved it.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Hooray for me! It was just phew. I don't have to do this again. I'm glad I've done it. Right, it's in there, and I think triathletes call it one and done. Is it?
Yeah, one and done.
And I am one and done on Ironman. That's it.
I've never done one. Never planned to do one. It's not my thing, long distance. So anybody who's done one, chapeau. It's absolutely amazing.
But like your point earlier on was, there's an awful lot of really very good triathletes who've never done Ironman. That is not all of what triathlon is. I think that's something we've got to get the message out, that you can have a lovely life in triathlon and never even think about doing an Ironman. It doesn't have to be. I think it
depends on the circles you're in. I was in a club when we first started, and we were a new club, and we all were starting in events together, and a certain party in the club were going longer and longer and longer, and they were then trying to pull everybody that way, and I just was not interested. Didn't interest me whatsoever. So I never went down that route, and it actually, their club still, we separated, we made a new club, but their club still primarily goes down the long distance, whereas the club that we're in, people can do any, well, not that you couldn't do shorter distances in there, but we do practically any distance. There's people who do all distances. You don't have to be specifically aiming at one and pull everybody along with you. So, but I mean, like we said earlier, it's just multisport's so great for that reason, that we've got so many different events and different distances that somebody can pick something that suits their needs. And
you can also kind of change it a bit over time. You could do longer distance for a bit and shorter distance, maybe go back to the longer distance or whatever. I know some people do it all the time. That's great for them. I can't do that. But no, I was glad to have that, and I enjoyed doing that for a while. But I don't think I need to do that again. And it's quite a selfish thing. It's hard physically, but also quite selfish as well. The time you have to spend doing the training is time you're not with people who you might think want to spend some time with you, whether or not they do. I don't know. But there's a financial cost to it, but then the time cost as well. Personal cost and everything. All of that. And so it was a great chapter, if you like. But you did it, underlined it. So what came next then after you'd done that? So that was 2022, and I was clear in my head I didn't want to do another Ironman, but I thought I wanted to carry on. And about that time, I became chair of Welsh Triathlon. My dates get a bit mixed up, but that was something that I'd never planned. I happened to live quite close to where the office is, if you like, and a friend of mine was on the board at the time. The previous chair had left, they needed someone, and I really wasn't interested. I got quite a busy job at the time, got a family and whatever, and I said no. And I didn't know anything about sports administration, or it wasn't I don't know. So I don't really think I'm who you need, and I haven't got much time anyway. And so, well, would you think about doing it for a bit, because we're in a bit of a... So, all right, do it. So I did it, and as is often the case with these things, you end up doing it. And I did a 3-year term, and I'm just coming towards the end of my second term now, which will be the end of that. So so I kind of got involved with that without really knowing an awful lot about triathlon. And all the folks at Welsh Triathlon who are on the staff and the folks at British Triathlon must have thought, what's this clown doing? So how did it go then? Obviously, well, I mean, you say you didn't have a lot on it, but you've done
You're Ironman, you've got your background for quite a considerable length of time, haven't you? So you've got that experience. You're not going in blind, are you? You know what I mean? All right, from an admin side of it, you probably don't know what goes on, but who does, until you're actually in somewhere like that.
Yeah, I think I knew a bit about what it was like to be a participant at the back end of fields, but in terms of the broader stuff about how the sport's organised and how the elite bit, the training centres are organised and how the organisation at the British and the home nations level, I knew nothing more about that than most people who turn up and race. Why would you?
It's one of those, if you're in, then you get to know, don't you?
So I was kind of really reliant on the great team at Welsh Tri, who kind of were very patient with me as I learned.
But it's nice, I think, sometimes having a fresh pair of eyes to shake things up a little bit. Because things like organisations, as we all know, they can get sort of like a bit stale if you've got the same people there all the time. They don't see any way forward sometimes, and it gets.
It is interesting. I mean, I think like a lot of industries, there's a lot of people who stay, and the one that is my main job, there's a lot of people who stay in the same industry for a long time, and some things then don't get questioned, do they? It's like, it's always been this way,
so we stick at it.
That kind of stuff. And so coming in with the advantage of not doing that, then some things struck me as kind of quite odd about why. So I had to ask, why is this done this way, and why is this like this? So just as the whole thing of triathlon had been kind of bright and shiny as new, then the administration of it was all really very different. So that was an interesting, another little, chapter of being involved in triathlon. And most people do triathlon and they never get involved in that, and good for them. But someone needs to do it, and I think the thing that struck me was how reliant the whole sport is on volunteers. There's in Wales, there's a very small staff of people, 8 or so folks, and the British Triathlon and whatever. There's folks again, but none of that works without the volunteers in clubs and the technical officials and the race organ and all of this, and that is quite an interesting structure. To be so reliant on people contributing their time. That's quite an interesting setup, isn't it? And I don't think those folks doing the volunteering roles, whether it's being team manager of the Agegroupers or whether it's at your local club event, I don't think those people often get recognised enough. And I think quite a lot of people who do participate in events, every now and again you see people shouting or being rude to these. This is not their job. They're doing it, and they'd probably rather be racing or doing something else. And so, I think we should all do a better job of recognising those volunteers.
I was just saying to Kate, my wife, who's now the manager of your team, that it's amazing, even in this short time that we've been over and met people, that they don't realise that the team managers are volunteers.
Well,
they don't know. They think they get paid for it. And for me, I think it's something that should be addressed, and then they probably wouldn't get, because they do get some grief from people who think, oh well, they're getting paid for this, and they're getting put up in hotels and everything's free and stuff. But they don't see all the hours that it takes that you've got to get to get all the people registered and times and things and that they put in. And we didn't, before Kate did it, we didn't realise what went into it, and I guess why shouldn't they? But I think it should be made clear to athletes that all their team managers are volunteers and they don't get paid.
That's absolutely true, and the same point is absolutely true at the level of say events that are organised by clubs. They're not doing it for money. They're doing it to put on events that other folks can enjoy.
I mean, how often do you see events that we go to? I mean, I went to an off-road duathlon a couple of Sundays ago at Dalby Forest, put on by Wild Deer Events, and 2 days before they were asking for volunteers to help with marshalling and stuff, because even at that local level, you know, they're still looking for people to be able to put these events on for free, because if they don't have them, then they won't be able to put the events on. So, you know, and I guess for people who are going in and volunteering, it's a way of giving back to the sport, like Kate's done.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, good on
from their side.
Yeah.
So your role as chairman.
Yeah.
Is that a paid position?
No, that's voluntary.
Is it voluntary
No,
again? Yeah.
I've got a day job.
Yeah. I know you got a day job. Yeah. I just wondered whether you got like reimbursed for your time or.
No.
You know,
and that's true for there's a board that kind of oversees the sport in Wales. And there's one in Scotland. There's one in England, and everyone on that they're all volunteers. Yeah. There's a small staff team of people who get paid, but the board no, it's completely voluntary.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah. And again, it's giving back, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you hope you're going to leave the organisation in a slightly better.
Hopefully.
And that you can help keep a sport going that you enjoy, but you also think is important more broadly than that. And not just triathlon, but all sports are really in a difficult place at the moment because, you know, government funding, you know, that's drying up, and all the rest of it. And triathlon's got, you know, the same challenges as many other sports, but some that are quite kind of particular. So, you know, with lots of councils closing down their pools, the opportunities for getting pool time are reducing, and such a low proportion now of such a high proportion of kids now are leaving school and they can't swim, right? So what are the chances of getting them involved in triathlon if they can't even swim? But then there's a bigger social problem there with so many kids not being able to swim, and then you see on the news that some kids died on holiday in Spain because they can't swim, you know. And like, so there's all of that kind of stuff, and what can we do as a sport to help out, not just keep the sport going, but doing something that's kind of like even more important.
Wider community.
Yeah, and so in Wales there's a unique piece of law, if you like, legislation called the Future Generations Act, which says that all public bodies have got to make decisions based not just on them now, but how it's going to impact on future generations. And that's the only piece of legislation of its type in the world.
Right.
And as a sport in Wales, we decided we were going to take that idea and try and take the idea and make it work at the level of a sport. Right. So the decisions we make are about future generations, not just the here and now, even though that's very difficult when the finances are things. So we're lucky we've got that kind of idea about what the purpose of a governing body is. It's not just to put on good events and broaden it, it's to try and think about what the future of sport is and how that sport can help, if you like, society in general. And it's a hard enough job running a sport, but then to give yourself that other thing is quite a challenge. But I think all organisations need to have an idea of purpose, and it's got to be a purpose that isn't, well, I like doing triathlon, so I've got to make sure there's a triathlon for me to do next week. It's like, okay, so what does that mean for all those people who've never heard of triathlon? Why should they care, right? Yeah. Why should their tax money be doing that? Well, because we think that there's a benefit of triathlon existing and getting.
You've only got to look back at COVID, what we were saying about 10 minutes ago, and how it helped so many people throughout that period. Sport's and it's not necessarily just triathlon, but sport in itself, or exercise in itself, is such a massive part for mental well-being and physical well-being. It's critical. You know, I think if more people did sport or some exercise of some form, I think maybe we wouldn't be in the predicament that we're in mentally as a nation. I could be talking nonsense there, but
well, you're not, and well, I don't think you are, but you know, everyone's worried about, you know, the NHS and the cost of the NHS, and we know an awful lot of the money that they spend is on stuff that's preventable, and so a bit of money spent on sport, which is preventing people or reducing the diabetes and the stuff that clogs up and costs the NHS the money, right? A bit more money spent on that might not be a bad idea, and it will reduce, you know, all the big expense or some of the big expenditures coming down there. So I think that's where we as a sport have to think about making our case. Yes, it's good for us and we like doing it. That's nice, but there's a reason why other people should think it's important as well. But we've got to make that case, and we've got to, so that's why I think it's important to have this idea about, for a governing body, it's got an idea. We're not doing it just because we like it. And sport is full of people who love the sport, and are committed to it. But that's nice for them, isn't it?
Yeah.
So why should we care?
Yeah.
Right? Well, there's a reason why it's a bigger purpose to serve. And I think we need to spend more of our time. But the governing bodies need to spend more of their time about making that case, because everyone's got a good case about why what they like doing should be supported. But I think we've got a good case why it makes sense to do that, because it's good for future generations, and shorter term, you know, it has knock-on effects for health and social care and mental well-being.
Absolutely, 100%. So what have you learned then in your time then as chairman of the Welsh Triathlon?
Well, I think we've gone over one of the most important ones about how much the sport is dependent on volunteers, how important to the sport clubs are, which is kind of a bit ironic because I'm not a member of a club.
I was just going to say that's quite rich, isn't it? Considering that you've not like been in a club, which is personal preference, isn't it? Because not everybody has the time to be part of a club. And as we said earlier, if you're doing longer distances, you don't necessarily train with anybody anyway, do you?
No.
So you know, it's not unusual. I've come across quite a lot of people who, for one reason or another, don't belong to a club. You know.
Yeah, that's kind of like a personal thing for me. I find it very hard. If I can go for a run, I need to be able to put on my shoes and go for a run.
And I think that's why people like yourself have never bothered, isn't it? Because they're just like, actually, I don't want to have to go to somewhere to then start. I can just go and do it myself, and it's quicker. It helps with, it's time management as well, isn't it, I guess?
It is, but for those people who can and want to, the role that clubs have is, you know, really, really important, and the safeguarding and the coaching and the welfare and the bringing on the kids, the clubs that have junior sections, you know, and of course that's all run by volunteers, you know, and these people are doing it for the good of sport and sometimes for a bigger goal as well, and making sure that those clubs are supported is, I think, one of the primary roles. Because it's difficult for a national association where there's Wales, you've got this kind of, they're not competing but they're dual roles, so you've got to have one eye on developing talent to win medals, right? Because to a certain extent that's what is a sport successful. Well, it's successful because, you know, Alex Sheehy gets gold medals, all right, but then there's a huge amount of other people that are benefiting from that, you know, like me and you aren't going to be winning gold medals in anything. So how can we develop the kind of the grassroots whilst giving ourselves the best chance of getting, so that's running the twin activities is quite a challenge, but learning how important the clubs are in doing that, you know, the participation and the grassroots, and just getting people engaged and helping them through and providing the range of stuff that we've talked about, you know, not just catering to the iron folks, but, you know, the shorter distances and the newer variants, and how important it is that clubs are doing that and that they feel supported in doing it, because it's hard to put on an event, you know.
Well, you see that, don't you? Because like so many event companies have closed down, and there's less and less, and it's financially hard for them because prices of everything had gone up, and that you know, that's affected them as well.
Yeah, so the fact that a club will take the financial risk to put on an event, you know, they're not sitting on millions of pounds in reserve that they can take. So, you know, it's a financial risk and a real stretch on their resources to put on these events. So it's quite important that if you are a triathlete, you kind of do support those events that are put on by the local clubs, and they might not be all glamorous, you know, they might not all be in Mauritius or whatever, but you know, just go and support your local events.
I mean, I've found recently, due to injury, I started doing the off-road events.
All right,
by Wild Deer. I've done 3 of their events. Low key, grassroots, you know, cheap as chips, really good events. And they've been outstanding, and the clever thing about them is that they don't just do like duathlon, but they'll do canicross, people running with the dogs, and when people are doing like a sprint duathlon, they'll have a 5k tacked onto that. If they're doing a standard duathlon, they'll have a 10k run onto that. So they're catering for a multitude of people at one event, and they're getting the financial rewards for that. And it's genius. It really is.
And that's another kind of thing about our sport, isn't it? That because there's such a variety of different locations, if you play football or rugby, you're on the same size pitch. You know, sometimes you might be in the middle of town, or you might be out, you know, in the countryside. But the pitch is more or less a football pitch, isn't it? You might have slightly different views, but it is. I went up to for the first time. I went and did an event on Anglesey in North Wales last year, and it was in a place called Newborough Forest. Never heard of it, never been there. You drive through this forest, and then you're a beach, and then you're running along a beach and running through a forest. And you're like, this place is really is a magical place. And I'd never have been there if I hadn't been doing triathlon. And you wouldn't go there to play football. I think if you're a surfer, you might get there, but otherwise, you know, you wouldn't get there. And so there's the event itself, but the opportunity then of doing it's not even like tourism. It's just like seeing these enchanted little nooks that you never get to.
Well, like I say, we've been to the 3 different forests. We went to Cannock Chase, we went to Sherwood Pines, and now we've been to Dalby Forest. And I said to Kate, I said, why did we never bring the kids to these places when we were growing up? Yeah. You know, I said, I just don't. They're amazing places in themselves without, you know, doing events or anything. But what beautiful places and so quiet because they're so vast. Yeah. You know, it's great countryside that you don't even think about going to.
And you know, it is another thing about the sport, isn't it, that you get to go to these lovely places. Some of them are on the. I mean, I'm just most events I've ever done have been in Wales, obviously. But you know, there's some are on the coast, but then some are inland, and some are hilly, and some aren't, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's quite just diverse.
Yeah, that the opportunity it gives you to just get out and see gorgeous bits of the world that you'd never been to before. That's a great thing that you don't get if you're a pool swimmer, right? For example, where you're staring at a black line, hitting a wall and coming back. You know, it's great, isn't it?
It's fabulous, and I think that's the sort of message that you want to get over to people. It's not just like you said earlier, not just triathlon. There's so much more to it. There's so many different elements, so many different areas that you can, you know, look into and find your favourite, find what you like to do. That's the beauty of multisport, and I say it nearly every episode. There's something there for everybody if they just knew about it and looked into it. So, what do you see the future from, you know, your time as the chairman of Welsh Triathlon? What do you see the future for that part, but also as triathlon in the country? Now you're an Agegrouper and part of the GB setup. What do you see for that side as well?
Well, that's kind of.
You'll have had some links with GB. Would you have some links with GB through your time?
Yeah, but it's been kind of. It's gone on, and I probably should have got to know more about it, but I haven't.
Right. So that was from your perspective. Was it because you were too busy doing just Welsh triathlon, or?
I think it was a bit. To be honest, it was probably a bit selfish in that I thought it was nothing that I could or should get involved in. This was something that you know only these elite athletes do, and you know they're a small subset of triathlon, and it looks like it's been well organised. You know, the folks in Wales seem to have got their bit sorted out, and British triathlons have been so. It seemed to be going all right. So amongst all the other things I had to keep an eye on, that was never top of my priority list, and I didn't have any kind of personal. I didn't think it was for me or anyone I knew. Yeah. So I was aware of it going on, and it's obviously discussed at British Triathlon and took an interest when it got to that level. But you know, more than that, I haven't really got interested in it, and it was only last year when I discovered that there was a thing called aquathlon, right? And he thought he should have known that before. Maybe I did, but it hadn't registered. Yeah. And I really am not very good on a bike, right? Or confident. So the idea of actually doing it and not having to ride a bike, bingo! I'm in here. I'll give that a go. And in doing it, I think someone said, well, you know, you're not that far off. You know, thinking about maybe representing Great Britain. Get away, get out of here. Very nice of you to say, but thanks for, you know, massaging the ego, but no, you got the wrong person. But you look at it and think, well, it is kind of attainable. I could do that, and wouldn't it be nice to, like, you know, represent Britain? And I was also interested in how it worked.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, well, I've never really stuck my nose in this as much as perhaps I should have done. Maybe if I tried to qualify, I'd also find out what it was like as an experience for everyone else who'd done it, and stick my nose in, uninvited, obviously,
and feed it back.
Just see what it was like, and almost be like a bit of a secret shopper.
Yeah.
So I went through the qualification process, and I never let it be known that, you know, the role I had. So
and how did you find out? Because I know we talked about it earlier. How did you find out about the pro? How did you not find out? But how did you find the process?
Well, that was interesting in that. I think that would be one of the advantages of being a member of a club, in that probably there'd be people there who'd been through it, who you could go and say, look, I've looked at this stuff online and, you know, it makes sense, but, you know, how do I actually just smash through the process? So I didn't have to do that, so I had to, like, kind of work it out myself. And, you know, there's information available on the internet and whatever, but it did take some piecing together. But I worked it out. You know, and there's different ways of qualifying for different events. You know, in some things that if you win a race, you're in. In other things, you submit a time, and then if that's good enough, then you might be, you know, that kind of stuff. And it's like anything, you know, it's good that there's a process, because then it means that people can't say, oh, you just got in because you're the chair. You know, to say, no, there was a process and I wasn't involved in that. And there needs to be a process, but I wonder if it could be made a bit clearer to people. The ones who've been doing it for years, you know,
you get used to the process.
You get used to it, and it's like, and they know what they have to do, and if there's a change from one year to another. But starting out, it's quite, I wouldn't say it was intimidating, but it's quite a lot to get through. So that was quite interesting. But then the support that you get from, like, the team manager, once you're here, that's great. You know, it's really nice to have a friendly face and sit down and have a coffee, as I did this morning.
Yeah, I mean,
and ask staff questions, as I did.
That came up because I listened to some. No, actually, I was interviewing the lady on the last podcast from New Zealand, and we were having a conversation about her first time. She qualified for New Zealand, and she said it was really nice because the team manager organised a coffee. So I said to Kate, I said that'd be a really good thing to do, because it's not. We've been doing these events for like years now, and it's not something that has ever come up in all the events that the managers never ever said, "Oh, come and have a coffee," and it's. But every manager's different, and they have different styles. But I just said to Kate, that would be really nice.
Yeah, well, I can't compare it to anything else, because it's like my first time. But for me, it meant a lot just to be able to, like, sit down with a friendly face and have a chat and say, look, basically, I'm really nervous about this. I shouldn't be. There's no reason to be nervous.
But it's standard to be, isn't it?
Yeah, and just have a reassuring face. Oh, that's normal. Everyone is. You know, all that kind of stuff. And to find out that there are people who are kind of more like me than I thought there would be. Not everyone is Alex Yee or bloody.
There's quite a few. There's quite a few newbies.
Non-Stanford, you know.
There always is, you know.
And there's some really, really top class athletes, right? But then there's some people who are like, should we say, more human.
Yeah.
You know. And so that was quite reassuring to know, because, you know, when you sign up, you don't actually know people there, and you think, you know, I really am not really supposed to be here. You know, like,
you get imposter syndrome.
You do. That's exactly what it is. And you know, if you can push yourself a bit out your comfort zone, then you're not completely on your own. If you've got, you know, a team manager set up there who can just not quite put an arm around you, but you know what I mean, just put you at ease a bit. So no, that was really good. That was really that's a really helpful part of the process, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Good to know. And she doesn't listen to the podcast, so she'll not find that one out.
Oh, okay.
I'll give her some feedback. Seriously, she doesn't. She's never even listened to her own, I don't think. Yeah, so just going into qualification then, because like we were saying earlier, it's different, isn't it, for different events. So for the aquathon, I mean, this is all new to me. We didn't do aquathon, so we didn't know what the process was until Kate took over as manager. And you could put different times in from different events to qualify, as long as you had the 120% and whatever, all those different bits had to fit, didn't they? It wasn't just a matter of like 120% against the race winner.
Well, to be completely honest with you, sitting here, I'm not sure I'm still entirely clear about what it was. You know, I filled it. I'm not very good at filling in forms, and I tend to just smash stuff in there. Yeah. I try and make sure it's true, but you know, but I know I submitted a time, and I put it in, and I think I honestly thought I probably wasn't going to get picked. Right? I thought I'll do my best. I've got a time. I think I've only done 2, maybe 3 aquathlons ever, right? And so I picked the one that I thought I did best in, what it was last year, and I stuck that in, and I paid my 12 quid, whatever it is, you've got to get into the game, and I just let the dice roll, you know, and then I got an email, and it was like,
you're in.
Come out the blade. I had to reread it. You have been, you know, congratulations, you have qualified to represent Great Britain. And you think, check the name. That's an admin error. That's gone to Alex Yee. You know, like, dear Alex. No, you said dear Martin. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's something, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that was great, but you know, don't ask me now.
Yeah.
What the process is.
From my understanding is, for the aquathon, you've got to submit a run time, you've got to submit a swim time. Those have got to be within a time. So 5k, I don't know what your 5k had to be. I don't know what the times cut-offs are.
Do you know what? I looked it up this morning.
Go on then. What are they? Because I have no idea what they are.
I looked them up and I've put them on my phone. Something. I think. I don't know. They're quite similar. I think you've got to. I think the 5k time's like 25 minutes,
right?
And then the swim time is like 23 or 24 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
There's a time, and it's like that for 5, and then that changes for the different age groups. You know, it goes up a bit.
Yeah.
So you've got to, if I understand it correctly, in the time you submit for an event, both components have got to fit within that.
Yeah.
So you've got to, but then the interesting bit is that time then has to be has to be close enough, expressed as a percentage of the winner's time.
So you've now got to be, although you've got the times, but that time's got to be within 120% of the winner's time.
Yeah.
The race that you've submitted.
Yeah. So if you happen to enter a race and there's, I keep saying Alex Yee, but whoever, some superstars in it, and you could actually smash your best ever time, put that in, but then you've got some superstar who's finished an hour ahead of you or whatever, even though you've done really well for you and, you know, objectively quite well, that might not be good if you've got a thing. So there was an interesting conversation, people this morning, and they were looking a bit sheepish when they were talking about it, and I said, so there's a bit of game playing going on here. You know, the idea then, if you're really hell-bent on qualifying, is to find an event where you don't think someone really good is going to be. And that's obviously with my kind of administrator having, that might have all sorts of kind of unintended consequences. And a person who was with us, and I won't say who it was, said, I'm not going to attend an event, X event, because I know that X person is going to be at that event. That person will finish a long way ahead of me, so there's no chance of me getting that. I could smash personal best, but there's no chance of me doing. I said, I wonder what it would be then like to be an event organiser, right? And these people, you know, the really good athletes are known, right, within an age group. And if, you know, Charlie Whizzy Boy turns up on your entry list, then you probably know that some people aren't going to enter, or they're probably not going to travel very far, because that person, or whether it's a male or a woman or whatever it is, in that event, and that might mean that people don't sign up. Yeah. People who just want to turn up for the event, you know, and have a nice event will do it, but those people who are interested in qualifying, whatever it is. So it affects event sign-ups, right?
Yeah.
But then, on the other side of that coin, if there are events where Charlie Wizzy doesn't turn up, then these people are looking at events that might be more likely to turn up to those. So there's all this kind of, and this is like blowing my mind that all of this is going on. You know, you turn up to an event, you do your thing, and all of this is going on underneath. That's a whole different world. Yeah? And you're sitting there nodding your head going, oh, you've only just woken up to this. Well, I have. It's like, boom!
You know what, and that's me. I mean, I probably wasn't who you were talking about, but I agree with what he said, that 9 times out of 10, because I obviously know the people in my age group who are really super fast, and I'm like 10 minutes, well, even at the weekend duathlon, I was 10 minutes behind the guy in my age group. I was 5 minutes behind him on the run, and I was 5 minutes behind him on the bike, and I ain't slow, you know, generally. So I know the people in my age group, not so much in...
You know what you want to do, don't you?
In cross duathlon.
You want to buy a more expensive bike.
Well, we'll have a word about that in a minute. But,
I'm joking.
Yeah. But yeah, every age group's got somebody who's just super good.
Right.
Doesn't matter, male, female, they could have been elite. We were talking about Donald Brooks earlier, you know, that guy. And he, you know, he's fantastic. And he's just head and shoulders above everybody else. And every age group's got people like that. And then there's us mere mortals who are, you know, we're not bad, but we're not ever going to be near them because one reason or the other. And you've got to find ways to try and, I'm not saying cheat because it's not cheating, it's about getting an advantage or, you know, being clever about being able to qualify. Because you've still got to hit the criteria in the race.
Yes.
You know, and like Kate said, in this event that you're doing, they put those times in that you've got to hit because they don't want you to go there and, you know, maybe not hit the cut-off time or whatever, you know what I mean, and fail. Because what's the point of that? There's no fun in that. We want you to go and have a good time and enjoy the event and do your best. So you've got to be of a standard. It just means that you can actually be quite clever about how you try and qualify. You know.
And that bit is only introduced because of that second layer about the qualification. If it was just about meeting an objective time, you've got to swim under this and run under this, then you go and do that, and that it wouldn't matter who else turned up, right? But because there's this extra thing about finishing within whatever it is, 120% or whatever it is, it then does matter who else is there. So it's not just about what you do, it's who else is there. And if there's an event where the entry list is made available or you can find it out, then I learned today that some people do make choices about entry based on who's turning up. So then I started thinking, well, what do event organisers think about that?
Well, they probably don't think about it.
No.
You know, I mean, I've not really thought about what an event organiser thinks about whether I turn up to their event or not, you know.
Well, if I was an event... You then construct all sorts of funny ideas that if you were an event organiser and your only objective was to make money, if you saw Charlie Wizzy person on anything, you might phone up and say, look, if I give you 200 quid not to turn up, right, I can make more money by getting more people in, because you're putting people off, right?
I think for qualifiers that could be the case. But not every event's a qualifier, is it? So
they're not, no. So for those, we're really going into like a...
It's a niche-y thing, isn't it?
We started off talking broadly about like how there's all sorts of triathlon gives all sorts of opportunities, some that I'm even only learning about, you know, aquathlon, whatever it is. And then at this pointy end of qualification and age group, there's a whole different world, layers and layers and games and stuff.
It's
you know,
definitely the way your mind works. Definitely, you're going to go home and have definite food for thought about things and processes and. I don't
know. I've had a bit of time to think about it today, but then once I get back, there'll be other stuff, other stuff to think about. But no, I'm glad other people, you know, like your wife and British Triathlon, I'm glad they've got people on that, thinking about that and doing that, and that the rest of us don't have to. I mean, it's great that there's a transparent system. You either make the times and you're either within that percentage or you're not. You know, it's not grace and favour. It's not. you know, yeah.
And then even if you are in some of the events, doesn't mean that you're going to qualify, because if there's more than 20 people in,
that's it.
you know,
Again,
your percentage isn't as good as the first 20. Then that's it.
But, you know, from a person just starting out on, the fact that is made clear, right? There are 20 places, you're either in or you aren't, you know.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and
no arguments with that, have you? It's just, it is what it is.
I'm sure there probably are, right? Because people are people, aren't they?
Well, the argument is you've just got to try and get better.
Yeah, that's
choose a race where they're not.
Well, that's not often an easy message to give, is it?
It's not. No.
But no, But I can imagine that for some people, all of this comes quite kind of all-consuming, can it? You know, like you can get fixated on this, and will I qualify one? I qualify one, whatever that is, and you know that's great. But that's a small part of the whole of multisport or triathlon, isn't it? And I think a lot of people can have a really great career and time doing triathlons, and never get bothered with that. You know? But
never involved in the age group thing at all.
Yeah, and I did that for whatever it was, 15 years, and I was blissfully unaware of it, and you know, happy about it.
And that's great. But I think once you're in it and you've got the bug, then it does become, you know, you want to do it more and more. Yeah. That's what I've found anyway.
Yeah. It could be like that, I guess, but then it could be a bit like a one and done on an Ironman. So I did that, and it was a great thing. It was a great experience. Very proud of it. But you know what? I'm happy just doing the events.
And you go on to the next thing,
or whatever. Something else. No, it's a separate. Well, it's not a separate part, but it's an important part of, if you like, that landscape of it that some people can get involved in, but others aren't. But I think more people might be interested in it if they realised that it was available to them and attainable to them, and it wasn't just Alex Yee and whoever the person you mentioned, whatever it was.
It's like I remember seeing people, you know, in these GB tri-suits, like most people, and they have that response, they must be good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you see the really old boys that were doing it, and you think, hang on a minute, they're doing it in their like 70s and 80s, and you know, what's this all about? And that's what I mean by it being attainable, because that's the beauty of it. It's in age groups, and you can carry on doing it till you drop, basically. Yeah. You know.
Well, hopefully.
I mean that's it.
No, but it's a great thing to think about, right? Yeah. To have a look at, see if it's for you. It might not be for everyone.
No.
But
well, it clearly isn't, is it? That's the.
But I think it might be for more people than they realise. Yeah. So I guess our job, and your podcast, I guess that's the whole purpose of the podcast, isn't it? So it's to make people think. You're not just trying to preach to the choir of people who are in it. It's trying to get other people to say, at least have a look at it, right? If you're interested in multisport, triathlon, whatever, have a look at this, right? And there's some really, really top class, really good athletes. But then there are some people that aren't that different, maybe, to you.
There are
and I'm an example of that.
Here now that, like me and you, we're just everyday people, and we've come across this, and we thought we'll have a go. We never thought we'd achieve it. You know, we've got no sporting elitist background, and it's attainable. And that's the message that I thought this would be great, getting like-minded people on and sharing their stories to show everybody that this is available, and these people have done it, and so can you.
Well, I haven't yet. It's tomorrow, isn't it?
So can you. But no, it's a great story that you've come into it from a different angle with your background, because I've not had anybody from, you know, a organisation, shall we say, on the podcast. Yeah. Well, Kate is now, but she wasn't. So I've not. Oh, David Pearson, he's been on a couple of times, and he's a manager as well, but at the time he wasn't. So I haven't had anybody on from any organisation to do with British Triathlon or Welsh or whatever. So it's nice to get that look from the other side as well, and you were brilliant because you've just come into it fresh as well, so you've got the newness and your experience from Welsh Tri, but coming into it and seeing your thoughts and hearing them, and it's been really good. I think people hopefully they'll enjoy that. So we'll finish up with the quickfire questions. And the first one I always ask is, what's your favourite bit of kit?
My favourite bit of kit for aquathlon is not having a bike.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, but not I guess, yeah. Normally, having a bike, and the bike is the favourite one actually. People come on all the time and say, "Oh, you my bike."
And most people I know that do triathlon love cycling, and they, I hate running, and
Yeah.
And I can tolerate the swim, but I really hate the run, and yeah. So for me, best bit of kit is not the bike, not having the bike.
Yeah, that's cool. Just going on that then, because you don't like riding the bike, did you have some experience that put you off it, or was there something that had happened?
Not really.
You've done an Ironman. I mean, you're on the bike for bloody hours, aren't you?
Yeah, that could have been the final straw.
Was that the thing that put you off?
Yeah, the bike ride at Tenby, I think that could have been it, really. No, I'm not very good, and I'm very nervous on a bike. My forearms hurt when I'm going downhill because I'm just on the brakes,
so much,
and I guess I could deal with that somehow.
But why bother?
But I don't want. I'm not bothered.
Well, yeah, life's too short, isn't it?
If I was going for therapy, it wouldn't be about riding a bike; it'd be other stuff.
Yeah.
So
cool.
you know what? That is one of another things about triathlon, isn't it? You're pushing yourself and you're finding out what you like and what you're good at, and what it is. And cycling for me doesn't tick either. I don't like it, and I'm absolutely no good at it. And I'm not that bothered about getting any better. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But as we were saying, the multi-sports, you have the option of doing that.
You do.
And if you don't like running, you can swim a bike. It's
100%.
Happy days.
Yeah, it is. So you've got here, what did a week of training look like then, generally, for you to get to?
Mixed. I went on a, partly with this in mind, I went on a triathlon training camp earlier on this year.
Okay, was that abroad?
It was abroad, it was in Lanzarote.
Oh, nice. Whereabouts in Lanzarote?
Not at La Santa, which is what everyone asks.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was with a group of folks who are largely based in Swansea, in Wales. A guy called Kevin Pullen. I think the organisation, the setup is called Peak Performance.
Okay.
And they run a tri club in that thing. And they've been going away for a number of years. I've never had anything to do with them. I heard about it through a contact. Someone said, come along, you'll fit in, and I'll be there to look after you. They dropped out in the week before. In fairness, their mother died. So I'm sorry about that, but wasn't thinking about me, were they? So I went to there, again, it was like kind of doing stuff that you haven't done before, so I went on something I'm not kind of thing I hadn't been done before with a group of people I never knew. And it was a good spread of athletes, but one of them there was a bloke who I found out is the European champion at his age group, middle distance maybe, proper athlete. So there was people like that, and then there were kind of people more like me as well. So I was in the bottom lane in the swimming group, and I was at the back of the cycling group. But so that was like a week's training like I've never done before.
So whereabouts in Lanzarote was it? Because we go there.
Costa Teguise.
Oh yes,
Sands Resort. Is where it was based.
Yeah.
And so the pool was outdoor.
Yeah.
Freezing.
Yeah.
And you think, I'm going to Lanzarote, will I even bother with a wetsuit? I wouldn't have been in the water without it, But that's good because most triathlons you've got to wear a wetsuit anyway, isn't it? So so that was good. So that was a great experience. But that was like a week's training like I've never done before.
Solid week.
I think I ran over 100 miles. I normally do about 15 or 20 on a big week. So that was like nothing done before. But then a normal week is nothing like that. A couple of runs and a couple of swims is what I do. Not a lot of cycling.
You don't need to, do you?
I don't need to now, but I've got a turbo in the house. and I get cold as well, so I don't like cycling in the cold.
Yeah.
So the bike's still on the turbo.
And do you use it then?
I do, but not much.
Not
Like
much.
once a week or whatever. Just on Zwift.
Yeah, well, Zwift's great, isn't it?
I don't get great value out of money for my subscription, but it's there when it's too nasty to think about running in it. Outdoors, yeah. So that's it. So normally it's more like that pattern, a couple of runs and a couple of swims.
Yeah.
And then really unusually, like go on this camp.
Yeah.
And then that was a real eye opener, because
I was going to say, what did you learn from the camp then?
Well, I got to learn about what it is to be what I'd call a proper triathlete. So I'll just give you one example. Most of the rides, what I'd call quite long. I think like a short one was 50 miles, and that's amazing. That's a good day out.
Ride, yeah.
That's a good ride. Yeah. And the runs were like upwards of 10 miles. And so there was one run one morning that was inserted into the programme as like a bit of a light-hearted, before the hard work was going to get done in the afternoon, after a swim, but before what I'd call a long bike ride. And it was a 10k run. And I found there were people there who had thought about their fuelling for that, what I'd call like a knockabout 10k run. Yeah? And they thought about what they were going to eat just before it, what they'd eat during it, and what they'd eat afterwards. Yeah? And it made me think about the full English I'd had. I thought, well, one of these things ain't like the other, you know. And then back to your imposter thing, like these people are good. Yeah. They're good athletes, but they're also thinking about stuff that I don't think about. And do you know what? I like my full English.
I mean, it's
you know,
each to their own, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know.
But learning how the proper, what I call proper triathletes operate and think, and how it goes a lot beyond just the trainings. And they're all on these things which everyone listening to this will be on. They're on their training peaks. They're logging their sleep, and they're logging their whatever it is, their intakes, and then they're exercising. They're inputting it all, and then they're analysing all this data. What else do you do? You know, what else do you do? Right?
But that's it. It becomes a lifestyle, and it's all encompassing, because that's what we do.
Grand, if that's
and if that's, you know, it's we go back to personal choice. If that's your thing,
I get it.
You know, but not everybody's like that. Some people want to have a life as well, and other people, that is their life.
So you asked, the question was, what did I learn on that? I learned about this, what proper triathlete, and the commitment and the effort and the dedication that involves, that's required to get to that. And if you're not, unless you're a really talented athlete, which I'm not, and you don't do what they do, then you can't begin to think that you're going to be finishing within half an hour or an hour there, and that's fine for me. And that's fine. And if you want to do something about it, you can walk away from the full English and have your granola or whatever it is, but you know,
get your good sleep,
get all of that.
All these things in line.
Don't go out for a pint, that kind of stuff. All of that, right? Fine, but in triathlon and multisports more generally, you can do that, or you can do it, I don't know what you call more recreational.
Yes, well, that's a good word for it, isn't it? Recreational. Yeah.
And to me, you can earn your full English by going out for a run. Or whatever. Yeah. So it's a daft example and like a bit trivial, but
I mean, that's a good. It's good, isn't it? Because you've actually seen, you know, what it could become, the other side, and not necessarily for you. So you've seen what, if you ever did want to go down that route, you now know what it takes. So you know what I mean. It's never say never. Things happen in life and change the way you are.
Of course they do. You know, of course they do. Yeah.
And take that from me.
All right. Okay.
You know, it happens. So it puts things into perspective, and it makes you change your ways.
Sure. So that So until I have that road to Damascus moment, I'm happy to do what I can.
I think
have a full English
doing what you do, it all helps, doesn't it? To keep us all in this mortal coil
for a while at least. Yeah. So the question was, what did I learn on the camp? That was it.
Yeah, cool.
And no one with any sense would need to be told that, would they? I don't know, it was so surprising to me, but it just being kind of in the same space as them for a concentrated
But
period.
I think you sell yourself short there, because I think a lot of people don't appreciate. People just see these athletes turning up and winning and winning, but they don't appreciate actually the finer detail that goes in. And some of them train better than the elite do, and diet are better than the elite because.
Yeah, I think I could have guessed if I'd asked.
Yeah.
If I'd been asked, I think I could have guessed how much they trained. You know, the volume and the intensity and the structured way they. I could have got that.
Yeah.
But it was the other bits.
Everything else.
Was the nutrition, and then all of this data bit. You know, they know what they've run and their splits, and they care.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Go out for a 10k, but that's good.
Yeah.
10 miles, that's great.
Yeah.
Happy days.
But that's it. We're all different, aren't we?
Indeed.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's the best advice that you've been given in a multi-sport sense?
I might have been given it this morning, which was smile tomorrow when you're doing your event. And as I said, I think it was either to you or whoever said it to me, I find that even harder because there are some people who are born graceful athletes and they tend to be the good ones. Yeah, you watch a good swimmer, you watch a good runner, you watch a good cyclist, they look effortless. Yeah, for the rest of us, it's shoulders up around your ears, hard slog, face grimace. You know, look at the thought of doing it and smiling at the same time. Apparently, it makes you perform better and it's better for your mental health, which I get, but I don't know if I can do that. I don't know what's harder, give up the full English or smile.
I think it's like all these things. It's something that you have to practice.
Practice smiling. All right. Well,
when you're going through pain, you've got to practice smiling.
All right. Oh,
you know.
Maybe that would
and
be.
And it was Kipchoge that he'd mentioned it, but there's a fantastic triathlete, Wellington, the female. I can't remember her first name. Chrissy Wellington. And that
look at me telling you about triathlon.
Look at you triathlete. Yeah.
Oh, that's the best thing that's happened to me today. Boom.
Yeah. Chrissy Wellington. She did it. That was one of the things that she did and got through a lot of races.
All right. Well, do you know what? I'm going to try that tomorrow.
Yeah. If you remember.
If I remember.
Through the pain, if you remember. That's why I said you need to practice it.
Well, if you're going to
be
it's
there,
not easy. If you're going to be there, you might.
When I see you, I'm going to shout smile.
I'll try not to shout back.
Cool. Be like that.
Yeah.
And the last question is, what's your long-term goal?
Long-term goal. That pause tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does really, doesn't it? But that's all right.
I'm sure most of the people you speak to will go, I want to get a gold medal tomorrow, I want to, qualify for Kona next year or whatever. I don't have one. While I was training for the Ironman, and then when I, whatever you call it, failed, it was, as I saw it at Bolton, completing an Ironman was a goal.
Yeah.
I would like to finish tomorrow, full stop.
Yeah.
I'd like to finish not too far behind the penultimate athlete in my age group, because I don't want to embarrass your wife.
She knows how hard it is herself to qualify.
Yeah.
You ain't embarrassing anybody, you're here, so that you can put that to bed.
But like I say, that's not.
Yeah. I think.
But the pause gave you the answer. Yeah. I don't really have one.
But to be fair to you, we only met this morning, and you've come on, and so you didn't have time to think about. You've not heard any of the other podcasts. You didn't know the questions I was going to ask. So fair comment. I've got one more question to ask. Do you think when you finished with your time at Welsh Triathlon as chairman, that'll be it, done for that? And also, do you think you'll find something else to do other than triathlon? Or are you going to keep your hand in the multisport?
I'm pretty sure I'll never try and do an Ironman again.
Yeah.
Definitely one and done on that. Now that I've found aquathlon, there might be a future in that.
Yeah.
Now that I've lost the burden of the bike, so I might carry on doing that, and especially there's a couple of sprint triathlons in South Wales that I'd like to carry on doing because they're local and because I like to support them.
Yeah.
But aquathlon, I could see I might carry on doing that. Yeah, so that would be, if I did think for a while that after I finished my term at Welsh Tri, I might just say that was a chapter of my life that was aquathlon. That was triathlon, as I thought it was then.
Yeah.
And that might be the end of it, and I might. I've always enjoyed playing golf.
Yeah. Well, that's why I asked the question. To be fair, one, because of the pause about what your long-term goal is, but because we all go through phases in life, don't we, where there's like certain times you do that, and then you find something else, and that goes. Like I did a keto for 10 years, and then that stopped, and I found something else. I found multisport. So there's all, and I remember people ducking in and out of Aikido while I was doing it, and they were going off doing diving, or so we do generally, find other stuff.
I did taekwondo for a bit as well, so that's. But there's a bit of an itch, which is a bit like the Ironman itch, in that when I was playing golf, I got down to a point where my handicap was quite close to something, and then I had my two boys, and I stopped playing, and I didn't quite get to. It doesn't matter what it was, but it was something. And I wonder, if I play golf again, whether I could get it back to where that was, and just over that one hurdle that I didn't get over. So that, cool. I think, that would mean kind of more to me than wondering whether I could knock 1 minute off a sprint triathlon or an hour off a sprint or whatever it is.
And I think, to be honest, we've got to do what we enjoy and what gets us out the door, doesn't it? And it doesn't matter what it is, as long as we're doing something. So fair play.
I think I could. I think it's more than likely at the moment that I'd carry on. So this is after next year now, doing aquathlon. And that's the whole point, isn't it? This takes us full circle to where we began, about the variety that's in multisports. Wherever, different phases of life, different circumstances. So you can say, well, I'll do a chapter of Ironman nonsense, and then, if I wanted, I think you could do aquathlon and do something else as well. Unless you go into full on.
It depends on the level, doesn't it? What you want to achieve. You could easily do it leisurely, or the odd, and do golf as well, and so good. Well, no, thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. I've really been entertained this afternoon. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed meeting you. You're a breath of fresh air, and thank you.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
Cheers.
Good. That's it. We're done. How was that?